here's Agata.
Hello.
Hi there, how are you doing?
Hello, brilliant. Sorry, just came back from a walk.
That's all right. You get yourself positioned. We've got quite a few people here. I can see one very famous GB marathon runner is watching us, which I'm very
Gosh,
pleased about.
no pressure.
No pressure at all. He's come to learn a bit, I think, Agata.
Yeah, definitely. Lots to learn.
But that's great. Fantastic. So, well, welcome everybody. While Agata's just getting set up, I'll just explain a little bit about the idea of BB Harriers AC Live and what this new weekly slot is all about and what we're trying to achieve. So what we thought we would do through the medium of Instagram, because we have all these different social media channels now, is try to give different people's perspective on the club through really an interview type conversation format, short conversation interview, where we can find out a little bit about what their involvement is with the club, how they've come to be here, how they've found it, what are the aspects, you know, that they see of the club from their point of view. With Agata on this first week, because this is, of course, the weekend of that would have been the London Marathon, and you know, looking at the weather, what a glorious day it would have been. I mean, it really would have been one of the greats, I think, this year. You know, lovely weather, but maybe not too hot. Not that I'm a pro like Agata; she's certainly run a few more marathons than myself, but wanted to get her now. Agata, what I can say is I can see your carpet. I don't know if you're positioning your phone
Can you
so
see my
well.
face
There
now?
you are. I can see you.
Oh,
I can see you
excellent.
well now. Perfect. Thank you very, very much. So, of course, Agata is blind. I guide run with her. That's how we've got to know each other. And I thought, how could we make the celebration of the London Marathon this weekend, which has been so well organised by Mike Peel in the run-up to this. He's done a fantastic job with the website, getting everyone's photos in there, and people have been sharing their pictures on social media. So really, to round that off, we've got a conversation with Agata that's run a number of different marathons and definitely has a very different experience to share with people about both the marathon and also the club. So Agata, I'll hand over to you now. And what I'm asked, my first question to you was, would you have been doing the London Marathon today?
No, I wouldn't have been. I ran Miami Marathon in February this year, and I would have been running the Greater Welsh Marathon earlier in April had it been not cancelled. But I did run the London
What's the
Marathon.
Greater Welsh Marathon?
It starts in Carmarthen and it's out along the coast and back along the coast, so pretty scenic.
Oh, that sounds really terrific. So when you are considering preparing for a marathon, what's your process? What do you go through? What are some of the challenges?
They've kind of all come about by chance till now. The first marathon I did was London, and you know, as soon as you start running, people are like, "Oh, are you going to run a marathon?" And so I was like, kind of took me 2 years to say yes, and London was the obvious choice. Then I ran Valencia as a bit of a destination marathon, but also I found the crowds at London quite difficult to negotiate when there's 2 or 3 of you. Sort of you need to stick together. I had 2 guide runners for my first London, so wanted somewhere less crowded, so Valencia ticked the box. Then I had the opportunity to run London again, and I'd had such an amazing time the first time that I thought, you know, why not? So I really wanted to run it again, and you know, London doesn't disappoint. It was with a group of differently abled athletes from all around the world, with an organisation called Achilles. So that was quite a special opportunity to be racing against other people who are also disabled, and just to have that whole atmosphere, which is hugely supportive but also hugely competitive. You know, you don't get that sort of thing at London. So I was really amazed to and privileged to be involved with something like that. And then Greater Welsh was just, a fun marathon out and back along a coastal path. I used to live in Llanelli, so you run from Carmarthen to Llanelli and back. So that would have been really special as well. But, in a few years' time, maybe.
That's terrific. Agata, can I ask you about some of the practical things? What is it like for you approaching a water station?
Yeah, um, it can be tricky because, especially later on in the marathon, everyone is sort of ducking and diving and panicking. They really want their water and they're getting quite tired. So the other people are quite unpredictable and my reaction's lower. So as I'm being guided, my guide runner's trying to get the water, keep me out of the way of other people, and my responses get slower as well. So there's all these factors you try and sort of account for, and it can be just quite chaotic. I just try and remember, it's a few seconds, you're going to slow down a little bit and you're going to carry on and it's going to be fine. So you just sort of try to distance yourself from it, but it can be a bit stressful. So yeah, water stops and taking gels and all of that stuff. It Yeah, just more communication with your guide runner and just more awareness of who is around you, but also it means, yeah, extra, just, yeah, a bit more stressful perhaps than for other people.
And how, when you're preparing, you've obviously mentioned you had two guide runners. When you're preparing for a marathon, are they your training partners, or how does it work?
So for the first London Marathon, I had two guide runners. I've not run other marathons with two, but it just so happened that that was amazing because one of my guide runners had to fall back and stop running with us at 16 miles. So I was very fortunate that I had someone else that I could carry on running with. I did all of my training runs with one of those guides and I did strength and conditioning with the other one. But I had been training with 3 or 4 other people for the first one. So that was when I lived in Nottingham. Then I moved to Bradford and I was running with 2 or 3 other people and the guy, Simon, that I then did the long runs with and the marathon, and that continued for the next London. And then I moved back to London and that was kind of crash marathon training. So, but I got more people involved for the Miami training. So I was maybe running with 6 or 7 people and then ran the actual marathon with Simon again. So there's lots and lots of different people involved, from the training to getting you to the race to then actually running the race with you, to all the practicalities around the race, bib pickup and all of this sort of stuff. So you rely on a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, you and I obviously did do a bit of guide running together, and I have to say that it's really transformed my enjoyment of running. I enjoy running very much anyway, but I've always found it quite a solitary
Mm.
pastime. And when I'm out running with you, I mean, I want to apologise publicly for the first time we went out because I think I kept grabbing you,
Yeah.
because I was petrified, and you were very, very what's the word? Calm with me, I think, and tolerant.
Yeah, it's a common
but
instinct.
but
It's a
it's
common thing. You go to grab someone because you don't yet have that trust relationship built up, that you don't yet know that I'm not going to fall over. So yeah, I really love the fact that my running isn't solitary. I do run with other people, and that bond of trust that you build up with the person you run with is just incredibly strong because they see you negotiating things with their help and they see themselves being able to support someone doing an activity they can't imagine doing themselves, running with their eyes closed. So it's like the guide runner builds trust in themselves to be able to support the blind runner safely, and the blind runner trusts the guide runner. So yeah, there's sort of patterns of trust in the relationship. It's really cool.
yeah, I certainly trusted you with you were much more adept than I was. But one of the things I did want to ask you about, Agata, is about your blindness, because I know that because I work, we were going out very early in the morning, and it really surprised me that one time we were running near Farnborough, and you went, "Oh, the sunrise," and I was like, "Oh wow."
Yeah.
So what it just explain to everyone about your blindness and how that's come about and how it affects
Yeah.
you now.
Yeah, so I have something called retinitis pigmentosa, which is a pretty common cause of blindness. It affects the retina, and there's pigmentation on the retina, so it either causes sort of blurry patches or tunnel vision, so just the center of your eye can see. So I have patchy tunnel vision, so I can see sort of big changes in light and dark, and big shapes, but because of the patches, I can't see the specific shape of the shape, if that makes sense. So I can see like really bright sunrises because the contrast is really big. But if things are subtle, like a really subtle sunset, I can't really see that because it all just sort of looks dark to me. So yeah, that's been an interesting thing to relearn, as it were, because I started running 4 years ago and I had a lot more sight even then compared to now. So that's been a learning curve for me that I've needed more instruction from my guide runner as I've run more, but also as my sight's deteriorated.
Yeah, I mean, what I find running with you is obviously there's a lot of that conversation, and I have to be aware and inform you, and it's terrible to be a British guide runner because there's times when I may not dare to say something. I'm sort of hoping you don't hit, hit the bin that I've forgotten to mention. It's all very embarrassing. You have to be quite extroverted, I think, when you're guide running. But
Yeah.
it is terrific, and we've certainly had some great mornings out together doing that. How does that? So you've explained about what your the amount that you can see
Mm.
when you're in the marathon, because obviously many of the people watching will have run a marathon, and others will
Yeah.
be wondering about running a marathon.
Yeah.
How is that perception in the different phases of the race for you? So
Oh,
the
good
start
question.
and so on.
So recently, I've been running a lot more with my eyes closed, and it really helps me to concentrate. So during Miami Marathon, I ran the first half with my eyes closed just to really try and dial in the pace that I wanted, to stay relaxed, to just tune out of everything and just feel how I was moving, and to um, like feel the atmosphere, but also to tune out of the atmosphere, to not get carried away, all of that sort of stuff. Um, and then in the second half of the race, I opened my eyes, enjoying what I could see. So there were palm trees and the sun was up, and I could see the wide empty road, and there were so I could see when I was gaining on someone and overtaking them, so I'd be like trying to chat to them. So I can see a moving person because of the contrast of the person and the road. Um, so I think that was my best example of like using what sight I had to my advantage, and also it's quite an advantage just to be able to close your eyes and tune out. Like it was, yeah,
Yes.
I felt really good about that. Um, but also when a race isn't going well, I get quite stressed and I get these things called floaters, which are like white sort of spots that float in front of my eyes, and that can intensify with stress. Um, and it almost makes you feel quite dizzy and quite nauseous feeling, and I get quite, yeah, dizzy and vertigo. And then say I don't spot someone, and they make me jump because I suddenly see them and it's like, oh, and it's just the visual unpleasantness just adds to the general unpleasantness of a difficult marathon. So it can play in both ways.
Right, and then you really must rely on that trust with your guide runner, because I guess they have to be aware of this
Yeah,
before running with you. I mean, was this
yeah.
something you knew would happen before you did a marathon, or did you just encounter this in the race and had to deal with it?
Um, my third marathon was really hard, and I didn't like. It sounds obvious that you can have a hard marathon, but I hadn't had such a difficult race until that point. I'd have really hard training runs, um, and all of that stuff. But until it happens in a race and there's all these people around you and it's just relentless, and you you know you're going to finish, but it's going to be horrible for the next however many hours. Um, that that really took me a while to sort of understand and think through, why did you find it so challenging, sort of mentally and visually and physically. And I think in a race, everything is intensified. So you do come across these things in training, but then in racing, it's magnified. And yeah, it took a little while to get over that marathon. um, but then, the one after that was great. So you can never predict these things.
Well, I certainly I can see that there are people watching that have done a number of marathons, but maybe not the variety that you've done. You've
Mm.
certainly experienced different courses. What was your favourite, would you say? Do you have a favourite?
Huh. I like London is just the iconic one for me. Um, Miami was just a bit boring, huge wide roads, and it's very American style. Um, and I tend to do best on boring courses. So somewhere where I don't have to think about where I'm turning, where I'm going, whether it's narrow or wide or anything like that. So the race I say was my best was just a mile out and a mile back for for 6 miles, and that's because I can kind of map the course onto my mind and I know where I'm going. Um, but London's just special. The most challenging course I've done was a half trail, half road ultra, and that that was hard. But again, it's fascinating because you're traveling so far on foot, and your mind is just playing these games with you where you're thinking so far back about where you've already come and so far forwards, and yet you're moving so slowly that the present is expanding. So yeah, there's all these weird sort of paradigms going on.
Well, there are. It's funny because I can identify with that, I think, a little bit, because certainly when I ran my London Marathon many years ago, the second half was very hard and I became very, very emotional. And
Mm.
I'm told that's due to sort of fats breaking down and all sorts of physiological processes. So it doesn't
Yeah,
surprise me that that would happen. But that's really interesting, really fascinating. So how obviously you love running. I know that we were doing
yeah,
some reasonable length training runs this year.
yeah.
With the lockdown, what's happened? How's Agata? Is she running?
No, she is not running. Well, I say I'm not running. I'm not running anywhere like I was. I was in pretty good shape before lockdown. I'd just done my last race and last run. No, my last race was the 20 miler building into my second marathon of the year, and it was my fastest 20 miles ever. And I was running really good speed sessions, and then lockdown happens, and it's like you can't be with someone outside of your household. And I thought, well, it is what it is. I can't train. I'm really lucky that my family is quite active and I'm living with my family. So my sister, she'll run sort of a mile and a half with me on the odd occasion. And my dad is a cyclist, so we can go out on the tandem. So that keeps me active. Um, my mum was a runner, but she's injured, so she's not running at the moment. So I'm finding it really frustrating that, all these people are complaining that their races have been cancelled, and what's the point of running now that there's no races? And I'm like, yeah, but you can run. And I know it's really different for people sort of overseas where you can't even leave the apartment, and I just can't imagine what that's like. But for people in the UK, I, I'm just trying not to think about it too much, because I don't have a treadmill, but I do have a garden and I do have a turbo trainer. So I'm spending a lot more time working on balance and yoga and sort of strength work, and I'm on the turbo and cycling and things like that. So, I'm going to come out of lockdown not as running fit, but I will have worked on my balance and strength and all of that stuff, which, I do anyway whilst I'm running, but not to the degree that I'm doing now. So I'm trying to focus on enjoying those things whilst I have the time.
Yeah, because I know that you like one of your interests is climbing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, so I was meant to be heading off and climbing in the lakes in June, but yeah, that's been cancelled. So I'm again just working on my strength, waiting till I can get back to the wall.
Oh, fantastic! Well, that's great that you can do that. And you. I guess we got to know each other because I'd met you a few times at Wednesday night. You come
Yeah.
down to the club on Wednesday night, and I know you've mentioned your sisters,
Hmm.
and people will know Magda and Katia, who are very very fast in our sprint squads, have been part of the YDL teams for years. Very very good athletes. But you joined the club in September.
Yeah.
How have you found that? What is it like joining Blackheath and Bromley Harriers?
Oh gosh. Um, well, I always used to go and watch my sisters at sprint meets, and on the odd occasion go to pick them up from training, and used to just find it incredible, these really fast sprinting feet, and it's just like, wow, how it used to make me really emotional, just the I don't know, like the joy and the energy and all of that. I just found it really beautiful, and so that was in the back of my mind when I started to run, but I wasn't in Bromley at that time, so I joined a local club in Nottingham, and then when I moved to Daventry and Bradford, I was in clubs there. So I had kind of experience of other running clubs, but in the back of your mind, um, like I had the like my sister's experience at B&B, and like I knew what it meant to them, so I was like, oh wow, can I really join like B&B now that I've moved back to London? And it's like, well, they're the local club, so I guess so. So I just found it really exciting to join the local running club, and I can walk to the clubhouse, and I can, like, that's not something I've ever been able to do before. And the fact that the club has a clubhouse, and there were all these new people to meet, and this amazing history, and everyone felt so passionately about it, and the fact that the club has its own track, or basically has its own track, like all of this, it's like, wow, I get to be part of this. It was really exciting.
That's great. So, but your experience has been mainly at the Wednesday nights, is it?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And how do you find those? Because I think it's interesting. You're one of the few women that attends the Wednesday night,
Yeah.
and of course, um, certainly a Wednesday night experience for you must be, a lot more about perception. How do you perceive the Wednesday night?
Well, for me, I don't join in the run because they go too fast for me, and I run with the people that I run with. We find routes that are wider, less going, but I can just run, and that's obviously not the priority of those that are running. So I've not been involved with the session, as it were. But what I really love is afterwards you get to go up to the bar and have a chat with people, and um, it's really special to have all these people that the club means so much to. As far as the balance of women men go, that's replicated throughout the country, to a greater or lesser extent. Like I've I've been kind of on the periphery of women's running groups, and they're really incredible. That female coaches, and like really strong women runners to real beginners, and like to me, I've always been at the back of any running club I'm a member of, apart from one. But even then, the route isn't necessarily accessible. So it's a common story for me that I don't necessarily join in with the main club run. I might do part of it and then peel off. But what's really nice is the socialising afterwards. Um, and yeah, that's it's just been really nice to meet people that are also runners.
I mean, I think we are blessed really in certainly when I think about when I'm running with you. we put our heads together, and there is quite a little, it's quite a lot of choice around what we do. I mean, we have to think a little bit maybe about the times of day we go out,
Yeah, yeah,
because there are obviously quieter times, and that's better
yeah,
for us, isn't it?
yeah.
And we certainly get, I think the most attention we get is when people see you and I attached together. Well, tell everyone what's that
Oh,
attaches us.
oh yeah, yeah. So we run holding a tether, and it's like a piece of material with two loops on either end, and you can get shorter ones for running on the track, or longer ones if you're sort of running somewhere where you're more confident. But yeah, some people are like, "Oh, why are you holding on to each other?" And then they're like, "Oh, okay, I get it." And you get some quite funny comments. But
I think we have to come up with some of our own. We need some good
yeah,
resources.
we need some witty responses.
We certainly do. We certainly do. So when you did the marathon with two runners, was
Yeah.
it one on each hand, I suppose, or were they attached
No,
to
no.
themselves, or what happened?
No, so how did we do it? We ran 2 miles and then swapped over. So that was actually quite handy because whilst and then the person that I wasn't running with would run ahead and get some water, or just make sure the path was clear ahead. And also we were making a feature film for one of my friends' university projects. So the person that I wasn't running with was filming us on a GoPro. So we had a whole team dynamic going on.
That's fantastic. And what about wear and tear on your body through a marathon?
Yeah, I don't feel it too much, I don't think, but I don't move my arms very much when I run. I find it really hard to visualize how it's meant to look. So I probably need to get some coaching on that at some point. But the guide runner tends to, I don't know, suffer, for want of a better word, more than me, because they're really keeping their right arm stiff so that I have like a point of reference. And also the guide runner that I run with most often gets injured on his right side, so that's the side that faces me. And your range of motion just isn't as fluid when you're running tethered to someone as it would be if you were running on your own. And I think I'm getting more used to that, but you do find like your foot strike matching and all of this stuff. So you have to be quite in tune with what you should be doing rather than matching yourself to your guide runner. So there's these things to think about.
That's really really interesting. Because of course you and I run. We may go out maybe for 10Ks, but in a marathon you're really pushing these
Yeah.
things to the absolute limit, aren't you? And you mentioned an ultra on
Yeah.
trail and road. So what's the farthest you've actually run?
35 miles.
35 miles.
Mm.
That's absolutely
It was a
incredible.
long way.
And was that with one guide runner?
Yeah, yeah, it was. It was.
That's really quite incredible.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how he did it, and I think what uh, it wasn't even the guiding; it's the mental dynamic of. I was asking him for about an hour, like, please just let me quit. And he just wouldn't let me, and I rang my parents. I told them not to come up to see me because I'm not going to finish it. It's pointless. And um yeah, that dynamic between the two of you, it's really quite strange where maybe usually in a race the anger that you feel or the frustration that you feel, it's directed towards yourself because it's you and yourself that's you're accountable to, whereas in a race you're so bound together. um, it's like, yeah, that frustration kind of bounces between you, and all the time I'm thinking, oh, they're thinking this and this of me, or I'm thinking this and this of them, and I don't. It's really hard to explain, but yeah, I was arguing for a good while to let me quit that ultra, but he wouldn't let me. He was just like, carry on, carry on, carry on, and then he finally gave in, and he let me stop, and we missed the cutoff. And then I was like, you know what? If they let us continue on the course, we might as well finish. So then it was my decision. Oh, sorry. It was my decision to carry on, and somehow that taking responsibility rather than the guide runners sort of encouraging and cajoling, I was like, no, it's my responsibility and I can carry on. And yeah, that that really helped me to realize it's because when you're running with someone, it can almost feel like they're dragging you along. And I've often questioned, is it actually me propelling myself, or am I just sort of following this person? And are they, am I just feeding off of their energy? And it's really important for me to feel that it's actually me that's doing the running. So that can come in all sorts of different ways, but yeah, in that ultra, it was specifically the decision to carry on and finish, which I'm really glad I
I think
did.
it's absolutely fascinating that there is such a dynamic,
Mm.
and the way you describe the dynamic, because it's so twee to talk about partnerships and so on and so forth,
Yeah,
but really it's a very, very, special and complex
yeah,
relationship you have
yeah,
with somebody,
yeah,
and
hugely.
that's really, really interesting. Um, well, Agata, thanks so much for sharing your experience with us, and I'm hoping that you and I will be back out for a run
Yeah,
together
me
sometime
too.
soon. Because I certainly enjoy it, and I know you're very, very knowledgeable. You explained to me about all the prime ministers of England as we ran around Farnborough. So anybody running around Farnborough, take a look at the street signs, because I can tell you there's an awful lot of history there, and you need to go for a run with someone like Agata that really knows it. So thank you very, very much for being
Oh,
our first guest on BB Harrier's AC Live.
thank
That
you
was a
for asking such
fantastic story.
thank you for asking such great questions.
Yeah, well, it was a special edition about the marathon, and I think we could have asked all kinds of people, but I think your story about the marathon and marathon running is absolutely unique. And I hope out of this, people have seen, a different side to the club, what goes on
Mm.
here, and they've got a chance to get to know you. And hey, maybe this will provoke a few people to thinking about, other things that they could do within the club. Maybe they would want
Yeah,
to
definitely.
try a bit of guide running, because certainly I highly recommend it. And I know,
Mm.
as you
Guide
mentioned,
running or just even participation, encouraging participation in different ways. Um, it takes so little for people to run with a beginner, but it means so much to the beginner to realize that even so-called fast runners can run slowly from time to time. Yeah, we can all have such a huge impact on other people's running that it can be through guide running or through lots of other ways. So yeah, I really, once this lockdown is ended, there'll be lots of new runners to get involved in running, because it feels like everyone's started to run these days.
I know that's great. We must get all these runners into the club.
Yeah,
Agatha, thank you
definitely.
very, very much.
Thank
Enjoy the
you.
rest of your Sunday evening, and
Thank
I
you.
look
Likewise.
forward to catching up with you soon.
Yeah, speak soon. Bye.
Bye.
Okay.